Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. Dan Mohrmann and Doug Ottewill with us. The new issue of Mile High Sports Magazine is out. The annual high school rankings issue, which means we've got a lot of magazine content to talk about over the coming weeks. And Doug, I figured today, as we start getting into that, we should start with page one of the magazine, and that's the lead where your dad, Bob Ottewill, look at that guy, former CHSAA Commissioner. Honored with a couple of pieces. You, of course, wrote one that we published on coloradopreps.com and got published on milehighsports.com. Another one came from the digital editor of denversports.com, James Merilatt. And James joins us right now, co-founder of Mile High Sports. We should point that out. And as I'm looking at the time and realizing we're going over that.
Really, that's what you should point out. The founder.
As we're going over that 11:30 mark, I'm having nightmare flashbacks of being stuck on I-70 traffic, hoping that you're stuck in just a little bit worse traffic so that I can get in the door just ahead of you. But James, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
What's up, fellas? I think of it every Thanksgiving, Dan. I always have that flashback.
Every Thanksgiving. Okay, yeah.
James, where are you? Are you like in a club? Looks like you got a high-backed leather
You look like you're in a bunker.
You got bottle service in front of you? Or?
Don't I look like I'm about ready to help Artemis 2 land on the moon? Something's going on here, right?
That's impressive.
I am in the KEPN AM 1600 studios. Okay. So, down here at Bonneville, which is home of the Fan, KYJO, Cozy, all that stuff. This is an empty studio. It's got a good backdrop, so I went with it.
As good as any. James, I asked you to come on because it's outside of maybe CHSAA and Mile High Sports, there wasn't a lot written necessarily about Bob. And I thought you did a great job on your piece at denversports.com of not really talking about Bob Ottewill, the CHSAA commissioner, but Bob Ottewill, the guy, because you've known him since you were a kid and growing up. What made him such an ideal person to kind of be the front man for Colorado high school sports?
Well, I mean, obviously he did a great job as the commissioner. And, I knew a lot of people would talk about that, write about that, mention that. That's what he was most known for in the state of Colorado when you reach the highest level and run that organization. But for me, he was someone who just, found the joy in sports. So growing up next door to him, his house, Doug's house, was the mecca for everybody in the neighborhood to go play wiffle ball, round the house football, basketball, you name it. There was always something going on. Everything was a game, right? If it was a rainy day, we could turn throwing corks into a vase into some sort of game, some sort of contest. So that was something that made an impact on me in my life, something I've passed on to my kids where, everything is an opportunity to keep score and to have a competition. But not only that, it was also a place where absolutely everybody was welcome, right? So it didn't matter what age you were, what size you were, how athletic you were. Everybody could come over and play. And it didn't matter if you were Big Al, the Kitties pal, or, Bo or Lando Lakes or whatever the case may be. Everybody had a nickname. Everybody was welcome and everybody came out to compete. So that was just the part of Bob that made a huge impact on me. And I know it made a huge impact on my friends and a lot of other people that were in the neighborhood and in the community. And it's something that continues to be passed on generation to generation. I'm not saying the stuff he did as commissioner didn't have an impact. Obviously it did. It touched thousands and thousands of kids. But for me and my little slice of it in North Glen, that was the big impact that he had on me, my friends, my family, and it continues on to this day.
Well, James, I always kind of tend to think that like someone's resume is impressive. Right? What you did and putting them on a list and having everybody go, man, you're a part of this, you're a part of that, you did this, you did that. It's impressive. But I think what your column did and what I really appreciated about it was that it was personal and it was very interesting. I think even I got a little different glimpse of my own dad when I read your piece. Because you had such a different personal take on him as a guy. I was curious, even after reading it, was there one or two specific memories that sort of clicked with you that said, hey, this is somebody that I want to emulate, or this moment had an impact in your life, even if you didn't realize it at the time? Is there anything specific that stands out to you along those lines?
Man, I mean, there were just so many of them, I guess. And I don't know if it was necessarily specific, Doug, but it was more like, when we're playing wiffle ball, right? It felt like it was every day during the summer. It probably was. And the fact that your dad would create all these different characters, and when he was batting, he would use one stance and he was hot patah, and he would use another stance and he was some other guy that he had made up, and just the imagination of it, right? And that carried on into my life. And when we first started the magazine, not to let any state secrets out here, Doug and I basically wrote every word of the first issue, but the staff bar had like 18 names in it. It was just a bunch of made up names that Doug and I came up with, basically tapping into the creativity that we learned from Bob.
Probably a lot of wiffle ball players, if I'm not mistaken, that wound up in the staff bar.
I mean, he wrote in the magazine as Pencils Robinson, which was a made up guy he had originally as a wiffle ball player, that I knew him as. So that was certainly something that made a huge impression on me. I think in terms of career wise too, Doug, just being at the wiffle ball tournament every year, and it would be Mike Monroe and Terry Fry and these guys that I read every day in the newspaper, whether it was the Denver Post or the Rocky Mountain News. I never thought that those people, I thought they were larger than life. And then you see them out there and they're just like, they're normal people. They're hanging out. They're having a beer. They can't hit a lick. I'm like, okay, all right. This is maybe a career path that I could go down. These people are human too. So that was always great. The fact that we would play basketball and our buddy Sin would always get yelled at by your dad if he didn't hit the outside hand with the pass, right? Like there's a right way to do things. Even if you're just playing pickup basketball in the driveway, you still got to do the little things right. That obviously made a huge impression that goes way beyond sports, right? 99.9% of us, I heard you guys when I was waiting to come on talking about all the great athletes that have played high school sports here in Colorado. 99.9% of us aren't going to play beyond high school. Heck, a lot of us aren't even going to play in high school, but it's those lessons that you learn. And for me, I learned them, playing pickup basketball in your driveway, Doug, where your dad is teaching us, hey, it doesn't matter that we're out here, playing a pickup and we're playing to 21 or whatever. We're still taking good shots. We're still hitting the outside hand. We're still moving without the basketball, those kind of things. So, I mean, I could carry on and on and on and on about examples like that, but those are a few that certainly jump to top of mind.
Well, I always, and I'm sure this has happened to you occasionally. You run across somebody who knew my dad that's in our industry here in sports media, and they say, "Oh yeah, I got suspended once because I got one too many technicals." Paul Cleat of the Colorado Gazette always reminds me, "I got suspended once by your dad because I had one too many yellow cards in soccer." And my reply is, yeah, well, James Merilatt and I got suspended more times from our own yard in our own driveway than anyone that's ever played a varsity sport in Colorado. My dad, Dan, would sit James and I down for fighting, for arguing, for being
no. James fighting and arguing? I refuse to believe it.
There were weeks where no one was allowed to play because until we decided we could get our act together and play nicely. We were not above the law of the commissioner.
Well, that kind of leads me into this one for you, James. Is you've been doing this and really analyzing the professional teams around town for a long time, and you see what each sports commissioner needs to be, right? You know that Roger Goodell needs to act a little bit differently than Adam Silver, a little bit differently than Rob Manfred. I'd love to get your thoughts on ABS because I know what a major advocate of instant replay you are, but that's another topic for another day. What was it about maybe that environment that Bob created that made him, the right guy to lead an association for high school kids? Because every commissioner, has to go about their avenue differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few things. One, Bob loved every sport, right? So you can't just be a football and a basketball guy and run CHSAA. There are, 25, 26, you guys would know better than me, varsity sports at the prep level. So I think that's part of it. The fact that, you didn't have to be a star to be someone that Bob loved to be around, right? It didn't matter if you were the kid who could come over and dunk in the driveway, which there weren't a lot of us. It was, we were growing up on Clare Circle in North Glen, or somebody who could just, throw it 90 miles an hour with the wiffle ball. You could just be anybody. And if you wanted to play, Bob had a place for you. And to me, that's what high school sports are all about, right? So it's whatever the sport is, and it's whatever your level of ability is, you still have a place, you still are respected, you're still represented. And I thought that's something that Bob did really, really well. I mean, I was around him for the entire time he was commissioner. I met him before he got that job, and then knew him obviously throughout that entire time. And I never remember him playing favorites with any sport, any class, any school. It just didn't matter. And, that to me, if you're going to have that job, that's what you have to do, right? Roger Goodell, it's a lot of the criticism he gets is because he's favoring one team or another. It seems like it's unfair in terms of how he applies the rules and the letter of the law. Bob wasn't that way. You could be the volleyball team out on the Eastern Plains. You could be the softball team on the Western Slope. You could be Valor. You could be Fowler. You could be whatever. And he treated everybody the same and applied the rules the same. To me, that's the key to that job. And when you've got back in the day, Doug, it was probably 300, 400 high schools, and they're all playing a ton of different sports. You got to be pretty well-rounded, and you got to be pretty fair about the justice that you're putting out there. To me, that's what made Bob perfect for that job.
Great piece that you wrote on denversports.com. Doug, anything else you want to lay out? I'm sure we've got to let James get back to his staff. It's Nuggets, Avalanche, all that's winding down. So,
well, one thing, James, maybe you could reset this just for fun, but I always thought, and I wrote about it in this month's issue. I always thought it was kind of funny that to you and I, my dad always thought, hey, this magazine, great idea. Go get it, guys. Go do it. We later found out from Irv Brown that the two of them were sitting around one day, not far from when we launched, and they're saying, these two guys are crazy. What are they doing? This thing isn't going to work. And lo and behold, it worked, largely because of guys like my dad and Irv that kind of helped along, put the good word out, made connections, whatever you want to say. But is there a day or a moment within the magazine that you remember that, it was kind of like, hey, Bob, thanks for the nod here. I mean, I've got my own list, but I was just curious for you. He was obviously a part of what we built. And if there was any memories that you had along those lines.
I just think the fact that he was willing, two things. One, to put his name on it, right? Like to write for it and to put in work and, never take a dime for it, just to volunteer and want to be a part of it. Like, to me, that kind of gave me the belief that, hey, we're onto something here. If Bob wants to be a part of it to any degree, that obviously is a sign. And then, when we got started, part of it was, we're two knuckleheads that were 29 years old from North Glen. We don't know anything. We don't know anybody in the industry, but we put together the advisory board. And primarily, Doug, that was people that either your dad knew really well, or the fact that, his name got us in the door with some of those folks. And we were able to have that as some credibility, whether we went to other writers or went to designers or went to advertisers of, hey, look who's on our advisory board. That was mainly because of the fact that your dad was associated with it to some degree. So that really helped us get started. And I think if we don't have that, I don't think the magazine gets off the ground. So that, and it's the belief, right? We didn't know that he thought it was a harebrained idea, but the fact that in our mind, he believed in it, that gives you confidence that sometimes confidence goes a long way, even if it's false confidence. And that certainly did it for us. One other thing, your dad gave me one of the best pieces of advice of all time, which was be slow to take offense. I'll never forget that, right? Like, especially in today's day and age, in 2026, everybody's offended by everything. Like, it can tick you off. I mean, you guys know me, I get ticked off at the drop of a hat. Everything can tick you off, but to really be offended, I think is one of those things. It's like, man, I can't think of the last time that something truly offended me. That was a piece of advice I got from Bob Ottewill. Be slow to take offense. I think that's something we could all take to heart, especially in today's day and age.
I try to offend Mohrmann every morning.
I'm going to start using that too. I'm actually going to start using that line.
I'm telling you, man, it for the most part, people, they'll do stuff. It'll set you off. Are they really offending you? Or is it just one of those things of like, yeah, I didn't care for that. Okay, there's a difference. That's one of those Bob Ottewill things that is just ingrained in my brain, and I've passed along to my boys as well.
Well, I'll tell you this: if Bob doesn't give you guys the advice that he does, you guys don't create what you do, and in kind of a roundabout way, none of us are sitting right here being able to talk, because I might have been at the tail end of it, but it certainly ended up having a big impact on me as well. So
yeah, man, you look around the Denver sports media landscape. Mm-hmm. Look at the national media landscape, right? With Lauren Gardner and Peter Burns and some of these people that have gone on, Mile High Sports. And I know Doug and I have talked about, it's one of the things that we're certainly proud of is the careers, to one degree or another that have, that Mile High Sports has either helped start, or it's been a stepping stone, or it's turned into, like you guys and what you're doing. That's a really cool legacy. And Bob was certainly a big part of helping us create that and creating that.
Yeah. And that's why we wanted to start with him.
Yep, for sure. Hey, fellas, not to run, but we're about to go to the backside of the moon here with Artemis.
You got a staffer.
And enjoy it. We know you're the space guy. But James, thanks so much. Continue to read James's stuff at denversports.com, and be slow to take offense to what James writes.
That's right. Be slow to take offense to James. That's a great piece of advice.
There you go. Especially when I'm telling you that Jokic is flopping. He was, fellas. Hey, I appreciate you having me on, and it's an honor to write the story, to write the column. I'm thrilled that it got put into the magazine, and always happy to come on and talk to you guys about anything, but especially about Bob.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
Thanks,
appreciate
Jimmy.
it.